Join us on Patreon and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone.
The sands of time often obscure the truth. In the blur of centuries, languages change, names are altered, and people are displaced, sometimes violently, from their homelands. But buried within the memories of diasporas and whispered across generations are echoes of an origin too sacred to forget. This is the story that many modern-day African Americans have tried to trace, not merely to the dark and horrific legacy of the transatlantic slave trade, but beyond it. Before the shores of West Africa, before the ships, before the chains, back to a time many believe when their ancestors walked in the lands of ancient Israel. Is it possible that African Americans are the descendants of the ancient Israelites? The question has not only historical and anthropological significance, but also deep cultural and spiritual implications. For some, it speaks to a yearning for identity, for connection to a history that predates the brutality of slavery. For others, it's a historical investigation that crosses continents, biblical records, oral traditions, linguistic parallels, and archaeological discoveries. To truly understand the depth of this inquiry, one must venture into the vast timeline of human migration, delve into ancient Semitic civilizations, scrutinize biblical narratives, and revisit colonial encounters in Africa. It is a journey through forgotten empires, neglected archives, and sacred memory. It is a voyage into one of the most controversial yet compelling historical debates of our time. The ancient Israelites, descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, were a Semitic people rooted in the lands of Canaan and later Judea. According to biblical accounts and historical records, the Israelites experienced periods of unity and division, conquest and exile. After the destruction of the first temple by the Babylonians in 586 BCE and later the second temple by the Romans in 70 CE, the Israelites, now known as Jews, were scattered across various regions. This dispersion, known as the Jewish diaspora, led to migrations into North Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, and even deeper into sub-Saharan Africa over time. Historical evidence shows that Jewish communities existed in Egypt, Ethiopia, Libya, and even as far west as Timbuktu in present-day Mali. The Jewish philosopher and traveler Eldad Hadani, in the 9th century CE, described Jewish communities in parts of East and Central Africa, which he claimed were remnants of the lost tribes of Israel. His writings, once dismissed by European scholars as mythical, have since attracted renewed attention in light of more recent discoveries. The Kingdom of Kush and the Ethiopian Empire both had long-standing relations with ancient Israel. The biblical account of the Queen of Sheba visiting King Solomon underscores a historical interaction between the Hebrew world and the Horn of Africa. More significantly, the Ethiopian Jews, known as Beta Israel, maintained a Hebrew-based religion and set of traditions for centuries without direct contact with other Jewish communities. Their existence raises a compelling question. If Israelites had spread to East Africa, could they not have journeyed further west and south? As empires rose and fell across Africa, oral traditions were often the only means of preserving history. Among several West African communities, especially the Igbo of Nigeria, there exists a rich tradition that traces their lineage back to ancient Israelites. The Igbo's customs, including circumcision on the 8th day, dietary laws resembling kashrut, and festival observances similar to Jewish holy days, have led some scholars and rabbis to speculate on a Semitic origin. The Lemba people of southern Africa present another intriguing case. For generations, they have claimed Jewish ancestry. In the 20th century, their traditions and religious practices, including ritual slaughter, male circumcision, and a special reverence for the Ark of the Covenant, drew attention. In the 1990s, genetic studies conducted by Tudor Parfit and later by Dr. Karl Skorecki found that a significant portion of Lemba males carry the Cohen modal haplotype, a genetic marker associated with the priestly lineage of Aaron in Jewish tradition. This discovery fueled claims that ancient Israelites had indeed migrated into Africa, intermarried with local populations, and maintained elements of their identity. The question then becomes, how did these ancient Semitic communities, scattered across Africa, intersect with the ancestors of today's African Americans? The answer lies in the dark age of the transatlantic slave trade. From the 16th to the 19th century, millions of Africans were captured and shipped across the Atlantic Ocean to the Americas. Among the regions targeted most by European slave traders were the coasts of West and Central Africa, areas rich in diverse ethnic groups and home to communities with oral histories linking them to the Israelites. Slavers often targeted socially cohesive and religiously observant communities, which they deemed valuable for their agricultural knowledge, obedience, and resilience. Many of the enslaved came from ethnic groups like the Igbo, Yoruba, Ashanti, and Fon, some of whom maintained customs that bore striking similarities to ancient Hebrew practices. Once in the Americas, these enslaved Africans were stripped of their identities, languages, and religions. But beneath the surface, traces of their ancestral traditions survived. Spirituals sung in the fields echoed biblical laments of exile and redemption. Some African American religious traditions incorporated Old Testament motifs with remarkable depth. The story of Moses leading his people out of bondage became a spiritual compass for many African Americans, not simply as metaphor, but as lived historical memory. Throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, African American thinkers, writers, and religious leaders began to speculate more deeply about their connection to the ancient Israelites. The rise of Black Hebrew Israelite movements was not merely a theological response to Christianity's failures to address Black suffering. It was also a historical assertion. Leaders like William Saunders Crowdy, Rabbi Wentworth Arthur Matthew, and later Ben Ami Ben Israel preached that African Americans were not only victims of history but heirs to a lost royal lineage. Their messages resonated deeply with communities that had suffered unspeakable loss and dehumanization. Critics have often dismissed these claims as pseudo-history, arguing that they stem from wishful thinking rather than empirical evidence. But new archaeological and genetic research, combined with re-evaluations of African oral traditions, have opened doors once thought permanently closed. Historians are beginning to question Eurocentric narratives that denied African agency, complexity, and connection to the ancient world. It is important to understand that the quest to establish a link between African Americans and ancient Israelites is not merely about bloodlines. It is about reclaiming a narrative that colonialism, slavery, and racism have tried to erase. It is about the possibility that descendants of kings, prophets, and priests were once shackled and branded as mere property. It is about truth, dignity, and a spiritual inheritance that refuses to be forgotten. So, are modern-day African Americans the descendants of the ancient Israelites? The answer remains elusive, not because the evidence is absent, but because it has yet to be fully uncovered, respected, and interpreted free of colonial bias. What is clear, however, is that the question itself is profoundly meaningful. It speaks to a buried past that demands recognition, to a shattered history yearning for wholeness. Whether through DNA, tradition, or the echo of sacred memory, the connection between African Americans and the ancient Israelites remains one of the most captivating and powerful historical questions of our time.